You're listening to the Illuminate Podcast. I'm your host, Joel Kors, and I'm passionate about encouraging and inspiring others to shine their light for Jesus. Let's explore together the stories of how others are following their purpose and shining their light. Let's get started. You're illuminating me. Hey friends, welcome to the Illuminate Podcast. I'm your host Joel, and today I'm here with a friend of mine, Andy Baker, from Gloucestershire, which is west of London, close to the Welsh border here in the UK. Andy has written and produced his own music in the past and is owner and director of Resound Media. I first met Andy in 2023, and through his mentorship and help, I wrote and published my first ever written work, a short study guide called Illuminate. And that work was actually the springboard for the Illuminate podcast. So it's probably no exaggeration to say that this podcast might not even be happening if it wasn't for Andy's help and input. So hey Andy, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on here today.
Well, thank you, Joel. And it's great to see Illuminate going from, idea to real illumination. So yeah, it's really great to join you, and yeah, really excited for what you're doing, because it's more than a podcast. It's a really powerful idea. So great to see it coming to life.
Amazing. Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear you share some of what it means for you to be shining your light for God. So let's just jump in straight away with a question. So from what I know about you, your journey kind of started out with music. Can you describe what your earliest memories of music were? I mean, where did that interest begin for you?
Oh, this is a great question to ask, because yesterday I was actually at my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary, and my dad is retired now. He's been retired quite a few years, and after retiring he started a band, because he's finally got the time to do it. But my dad, he plays keyboards in a band. He's always kind of tinkered with keyboards. We actually had an organ in the house, not like a church organ, but it was like, something with pedals, and it was quite fun. So my earliest memories would have been sitting probably at the organ with my dad and listening to music. He had a really big record collection. So I think it definitely came from that kind of time at home. And my sister, who's a little bit older than me, she'd sing, and we started doing music together when we were quite young and everything. So yeah, it's always part of stuff at home, really.
I've got a lot of respect for organ players, because those things are quite impressive, aren't they? That there's a lot of coordination going on there with pedals, different layers of keyboard, and all the I have no idea what they call them, but all the things they have to pull out as well.
The buttons and I don't know really. I was too little. I think we got rid of it before my feet could actually reach the pedals. But we had keyboards, and we had a piano, and then I started playing guitar when I was about 10.
Yeah.
And so music was a big part of growing up.
Sure. And then obviously as the years went by, how did your passion for music develop to the point where you started thinking about writing your own songs?
Yeah, well, as I said, I started playing the guitar when I was about 10, and I don't know why, but I started writing these kind of imaginary love songs, these feelings I hadn't had, but I just, you hear the songs on the radio and you try and evoke a feeling. And so I started writing songs just for my own enjoyment when I was about 10. And again, really poignant questions here, but the first ever song I actually learned the guitar was Keep On Rocking in the Free World.
Oh, wow.
Neil Young. And I saw a bit of Neil Young, who's not so young anymore, but he's still rocking on Glastonbury and the TV. And it kind of took me back to that time. I started to write songs, but my real kind of passion and purpose started to grow when I found faith as a 12-year-old. I went along to see a very new band. I think they're doing their first UK tour at the time, called Delirious, back in 1996. And they were playing at a school hall in Sheffield. And my sister said, "Oh, there's this band playing. Do you want to come along?" And it was basically have a babysitter at home or go to this Christian concert with my sister. And the gig was amazing. And I was really drawn into the music and the kind of heart of the music, and I had a real spiritual encounter, spiritual awakening at that event. Not long after that, I felt a real sense of calling into music. I had a bit of a crazy dream that happened, and then kind of happened in real life the next day. And
Wow.
it was really profound. It was a very clear word from God that my direction was to travel, following him, following the teaching of Christ, but pursuing music. Prior to that, my passion was football.
Sure.
But then it was music. That was the thing that got my attention, and that I was kind of hooked from that age.
Yeah. And then as that went on, then at some point you started writing your own songs, Christian songs.
Yeah, I was already dabbling with, say, these kind of imaginary love songs, but very naturally started writing songs about kind of what I was experiencing and who I was kind of seeing God to be, and the person of Christ. And so it's a real kind of exploration of this relationship, finding faith and having a very spiritually alive faith as a young person. I had a lot to say, a lot to share. So I actually made my first album, I think, when I was 13, and it's great because you can't find it. It's
Wow.
not on YouTube or anything. Pre-YouTube days, it was a
Sure.
cassette tape and stuff. And I got involved in music at church and started my first band at 14, and was doing gigs from then and traveling the country at 15 and producing
Wow.
music professionally alongside like sixth form college when I was 16. And it was just all I wanted to do. It was a real passion, but it was rooted in a purpose, and
Yeah.
that purpose was really following my call. So I was doing music in church, but also doing music outside of church as well, and really enjoying that mix.
Yeah. So that's a real kind of like, you can really see there where you've come from in that kind of journey. I'm quite interested that I kind of read that in 2018, so that's actually a lot more recently, you embarked on a mission to release 52 songs in a year. So as someone that produces music myself,
Yeah.
I understand the amount of effort it takes to really do one song. I mean, it takes me 3 to 6 months to get from writing a song to releasing a song. So
Yeah.
to undertake 52 songs in a year is some kind of like crazy notion, right? I mean, what possessed you? Maybe that's not the right word, but what inspired you would be a better word to embark on such a mission.
Yeah, well, it was an accident in many ways, but actually, I don't think it was. I think it was very much ordained. I was working at some quite established recording studios and working with a couple of producers who were like real heroes of mine, and so I got really good experience and opportunity to start doing things at a fairly serious level quite young. And then I got into, producing and then managing artists. And
Yeah.
to begin with, I had space to do like music at church, and I had space to do some of my own music. But then as, kind of the years went on, just the ability and kind of space to be able to do things just got less and less. And it got to the point where I literally was just doing nothing. I wasn't doing any music at church. I was, going to church, but not at all involved in music there. And I was only really writing music when I was getting paid to do it. It's kind of, I'd lost my amateur enthusiasm and I'd become a professional, and for many people that's the dream, to be a professional. But when you lose that kind of amateur enthusiasm, that's a sad day. And I see it happen a lot in the music space because it's so hard. And I felt a real sense of awakening. I went through a bit of a process of kind of a bit of a body, mind, spirit reboot. And I just thought, I don't want to go back to constant stress. And I just thought, I want to stay in this place where, I know that God is with me and he's my peace. He's my provider. He's able to give me this. And so I made some decisions in that season to change what I was doing in terms of work. And one of those decisions was, it's kind of a New Year's resolution. The 1st of January, 2018, it was to get up half an hour earlier and just spend some time with God. That was something that got squeezed out of my schedule. And I just came with this idea that I was going to do a morning routine. I'd never done a morning routine before. I'd never journaled before. And I'd recommend it to everyone. Journaling was powerful. And what I found through journaling was, the Bible talks in Romans 12 about, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I found journaling just a really good way to get to understand what I'm thinking and to invite God into my thinking through just scribbling things down in paper. And what happened is through this morning routine, which I kind of started on the 1st of January, and it just stuck. Songs just flowing.
Wow.
I think in 3 months I'd finished 40 songs by accident.
Wow. Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, God, this is really unusual. I've never had a season like this. It felt like a real special time. And I prayed about it, and I felt God say, share the songs. And I argued with it. I said, no, thanks. Because like you said, Joel, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take up a lot of money. It's going to be quite distracting. We had our second child on the way, and it was not a great time to start kind of quote unquote being an artist. But I felt the Lord say share, and I just thought I need to follow this. And I knew there's something special about these songs. It felt like I was getting a real download.
Yeah.
And I just thought I had to do something with them. So I made that commitment to look into how to share them.
Sure.
And that's where it all began.
Wow. That's incredible. You used a word in there which was in my mind as well, which was like download. It felt like that was just like a divine download, if you like, where God just put all those songs into your head. But I'm guessing that the actual outworking of that was not without some pain.
Yeah, it was in many ways. My business had gone through a whole load of transition, as anyone who's been in the music industry 20 years could tell you. It's a bit of a constant roller coaster in terms of how the industry has changed and evolved. And we'd gone through a couple of challenging years actually with some things, and it was a really bad time to start something which I knew wasn't going to make us any money in the short term. But I felt very compelled to share these songs. I had a lot of them, and I kind of thought, do I do an album? What do I do?
Yeah.
And I thought actually, I think sharing songs should be out of a routine and a rhythm. And I thought, should I do one every month? And I thought, well, I've got so many of these songs, I won't be able to share them. And I thought, maybe, could I do one a week? I was like, is that a bit crazy?
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what, if I got really organized, because I'm a systems guy, as you know, Joel. I love systems. I love like getting things in order. And so I spoke with a friend of mine called Michelle, and she'd worked with me previously as a consultant. And I shared this kind of crazy vision. I was like, what about sharing a song every week? And here's the idea. And she's not from a like Christian background or anything, but she just loved it. She's like, oh, this is brilliant. She saw the opportunity, and I felt quite convicted that this shouldn't be about me. It should be a way to try and encourage other people who maybe like me have got busy with life and work and career, whatever it is, and maybe they've lost their way in terms of sharing, releasing the download they're getting. And so we got this name Homegrown, Homegrown Worship, and I shared it with a few people, and some people loved it, and some people thought, oh, it sounds awful, it sounds terrible, it's like homebrew. And someone said it sounds really amateur, and I was like, brilliant, we're going with that. Because again, it was not, the aim was never to be epic worship or stadium worship or look at me worship, but we just wanted it to be homegrown. We wanted it to be authentic, real, have a kind of raw edge to it, but at the same time tasty and good, good for the soul and all of this. And so we stuck with this name, and we decided that I was going to launch these songs, not to try and build my artist career, but to actually kind of model it, like to be a pace setter for other people, to say, look, if I can do one a week, you can do one a month, or at least one every 3 months, or 6 months. If I can do it, you can do it. It wasn't a great time for me. I couldn't, a lot of the time I speak to artists, I can't afford to do this. It's like, if you have a call, you can't afford not to do it. It doesn't matter what the financial cost is. And for me, it was very costly. 52 songs over 52 weeks. I had a business to run.
Yeah.
It was a huge investment. We put literally everything we could into it. And truth be told, at the end of the year, it was a year's wages that I put into
I can imagine.
And I remember we got to about Easter time, which is about 10 months into the cycle. And I was in church one day. I was like, God, I know you asked me to do this, but it got so bad financially that we couldn't even remortgage our house to basically get out of a tight spot. And God said to me very clearly, I remember I was in church in Cheltenham, and he said, Andy, your worship is of value to me because it has cost you. And that week they were, one of the ministers at the time, Gareth, he was talking about, how Jesus really, he gave his everything for us. And I thought, actually, I'm not here to try and be like, yeah, look at me, I'm such a good, Christian or anything like that. But in that season, through those actions, I had followed what I felt God asked me to do in that time. I'd been obedient with that. But he took me on this journey and he said, Andy, your worship is of value to me because it's cost you something. And from that, I wrote a song which was our penultimate release 51 of 52, called Every Ounce. And a lot of people would say, who follow the journey, or you can listen back on Spotify now, that was the song. And it's kind of like I learned that song and I earned that song through that journey. And I decided at the end of the year, I couldn't continue. We didn't have any money to continue. But I felt like I'd been obedient in that journey and built this, I guess, kind of like compendium of songs. And one of the things that drove me through that was, we were expecting our second child, 2018, and she arrived, and I just thought, if I don't kind of live to an old age, I want to go on this journey, and I want to share with my children this journey of faith. And the way that I thought that I could best do that was to document it through songs. So that was one of my big driving forces when it was 3 a.m. in the studio for like a second night running, and I've got eldest child to school the next day. I've got to be in the office. I've got appointments. That was what really drove me thinking, I want to leave a legacy here. It doesn't have to be, a legacy of hit records. But it has to be a real and authentic journey of faith. And that's what I tried to do with Homegrown Worship, and what kind of went from there was really exciting. We got lots of other artists and writers, churches around the world involved in it, helping them to unearth and share their songs. And that was really that was the aim, really, to kind of activate other people. And sometimes you've got to do crazy things like that to get other people on board and involved.
That's really cool. I'd just like to wind the clock back a little bit to 2005, because 2005 is when you started Resound Media. So can you explain then what inspired you to start Resound Media?
So I wanted to start my own business, partly because I think I'd just be a terrible employee. I think I'd be really hard for anyone to, have to line manage. I wanted to do it, but I was a bit scared, if I'm honest, Joel. I had this vision and I wanted to produce records. I wanted to write songs. I didn't really know I wanted to manage artists. I kind of fell into that a little bit, by chance, but I knew I wanted to work in that industry. I felt called into it. I had some experience in it. But it's difficult, I went to university. My parents were quite nervous about the idea of me starting my own business. I was only 21. What did I know about all that stuff? I'd had a few, projects and clients and stuff, but doing it full time and paying the bills is a whole other thing. I remember my mum was at me kind of saying, you need to go to the job centre. You need to go and look for a job. And it's like, I'm not really seeking, I'm not really looking for a job. I kind of was just praying that God would somehow, make things happen for me. And it was a bit of a crazy time. But I remember finally saying to my mum, okay, I'll go to the job centre. And I went into the town in Sheffield, into the city centre, and I was meeting my friend Jez for lunch. And then I was going to go to the job centre after lunch. But basically what happened before I went to meet him, I went into the Christian bookshop, CLC bookshop, which is no longer there because like Christian bookshops, don't kind of exist anymore, sadly. And I was in there 11:30 in the morning, and a lady came up to me. I was looking at CDs, and this was in 2005. And this lady came up to me and said, Andy. I was like, oh, you know my name? And I kind of recognized her, but I didn't know her name. And she said, oh, it's strange I should see you here, but I'm looking for a guitar teacher. Would you be able to help me? And I'd kind of said to myself, I didn't want to be a music teacher. I thought I could maybe do that. I'd done a bit of teaching throughout kind of university, but I don't want to be a music teacher. And she's like, would you be able to recommend a guitar teacher? I was like, well, I've just finished uni. I could maybe do that. So I basically had an accidental guitar student, and in the second lesson, she said, I have to tell the truth to you. I have been looking for a Christian guitar teacher for quite some time, and I've had a couple of people I start with, and things haven't worked out. And I was about to call someone in Yellow Pages, just a random person, to teach me guitar, but I felt God say to me, no, I want to go to CLC Bookshop. at
Wow.
11:30, and there'll be
Yeah.
someone there who will basically help you. And that was me. I was there right at that time.
Yeah.
And this lady, Lindsay, she literally like introduced me to about 6 other people. And before I knew it, and again by accident, because I hadn't planned this, I had 16 students. I was teaching like guitar, songwriting, vocals, music
Wow.
production on a Tuesday
Sure.
and a Wednesday. And that basically enabled me to then start my business. So I was doing the music teaching 2 days a week, 16 students, just cramming it in, getting them all in. And then I had 5 days through which I could focus on other things. And it was just amazing because, I wouldn't have thought to do the music teaching thing. It's not what I necessarily wanted to do, but it's what God had kind of planned for me. So I didn't have to get another job. And it was incredible, really. Just there's been so many times in life when I've had those interventions where God just comes along through circumstance, through a person, through a word. That was a real defining moment. If that hadn't have happened, I might have, gone to the job centre. I might have got a job, and I might not have done any of the things that I've done. You never know.
So it was like God opening doors at the right time, really, for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And it wasn't the kind of big dream. It wasn't like the destination, but it was like his part of the journey. And that was really, it's really great. I'm really encouraged listening back, as I revisiting it, remembering these stories. But I called the business Resound Media. I prayed about it, and I felt that, whilst I was only 21 and I was just doing music, I needed a vision that I guess that I could grow into. And I get really into names. I think names are really important, like what you call yourself and how you relate to your own name. It's name and function in the Bible are very very interwoven. Often, God would give people new names after encounters with him. And Resound Media, it just felt like the right thing for that time. And within a couple of years, we were doing graphics and websites and videos and all this kind of stuff. All these things I've never done, but the name kind of helped me to grow into it.
So it almost feels like there's been like 2 tracks running here, hasn't there? There's almost been you exploring your own sort of musical journey on one side, but then also God sort of developing this second track, which is almost like helping other people along the way to also pursue their dreams and visions and their calling in God, I guess. So it's almost like, from the Illuminate perspective, you're shining your light, but you're also helping other people to shine theirs in what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. I've always been keen to pass on whatever I learn. I'm one of these guys. I buy a book and then it's like the next day, I'm like, oh, you need to know this. Have you heard about this? So I love kind of passing it on. I love creating, but I'm not bothered about the limelight, as it were, or the spotlight.
Sure.
I don't mind being on a stage, but I also don't live for those moments. I'm really happy to see other people succeeding, other people enjoying those kind of gifts and all of that. So that's something I have. I like to try things. I like to learn new things. I like to have a go. I love creating, but it's about doing it kind of for those reasons that you connect with as well.
Yeah. So we've covered quite a lot there in terms of how you've developed through music, but obviously in your business. So what advice would you give to our friends listening if they're feeling unsure about how they're meant to be shining their light for God,
Yeah, I think it's really important to make time for those conversations with God, to find space for reflection, to find space for really hearing God speak. And that's a difficult thing to teach people. I guess it's a relationship, isn't it? You've got to spend time getting to know someone in order to listen and hear them. So I think the main thing is pursuing that relationship with him and having that desire, really, that whatever you do, that he's with you on the journey. I think it can be quite easy to get swept into this kind of thinking that there's a destination that you're meant to reach. And I'm not sure that's the case, to be honest. I mean, sometimes God gives us, I believe, visions of the future, but it's not always that those visions become reality. It's sometimes a glimpse into, the direction of travel. Yeah, sometimes those things are eventualities, they are destinations, but it's a bit of a cliche, but I think you've got to look at the journey, and it is about the journey and who you're traveling with on the journey. And it's like you've got to keep relying on God for what you need, and for different people that's going to be different things. To tune in with what God's saying to them. And I have a mentor called Steve, who's a really, really good guy, and he's a musician, but he's been very successful in business. He's got a very deep faith, and he's always encouraged me, Andy, join in with what God's doing. Don't try and force him to join in with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a really good bit of wisdom to really look at what is he doing? What is he saying? What is he? Where's he at work? Where can you see that? And then join in with that, rather than, come on, God, will you bless this? Will you give me success so I can feel a sense of purpose? And I think that purpose is not really in the destination. The purpose is in knowing
journey.
God and being on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you share what's next for you at the moment? I'm aware you're always creating new things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why don't you share what's currently on the table?
Yeah, so we're currently working on a whole load of new things. We've got a very vibrant and colourful community called LearnX. So LearnX is a kind of educational content world, like it's kind of a metaverse. I've got some of the characters behind me, some that you can meet. And so I've been working on a lot of educational content. So it's personal, professional, organizational development. So it kind of touches kind of everyone in different ways. But what we have inside LearnX is basically a community of communities. We've been building some new technology to kind of bring this together. So we have our Smartest Artists community in there. We're just actually launching a new program in conjunction with our crowdfunding platform, Rocket Fuel. So you've got Smartest Artist community in there, but we've also got communities for a few different sectors that we're working with, business builders, people, entrepreneurs, actually working, believe it or not, because I don't even have a dog, but we're working in with veterinary practices. So we've got a community of companies we're working with in that industry. So there's a whole range of things that we're doing there, just to make education and kind of personal professional development more engaging. So we're producing a lot of content, we've got courses, we've got an online platform, and we also have chatbot cards. So this is something I've been working on. So this is just a little sample. So you basically meet the characters, you scan the QR codes, and they literally solve all of your problems. That's the idea with them. So
yeah, they sound like people that I need to meet.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, yeah. These ones are for veterinary, but we do have a whole series actually for the Smartest Artists. So Archie the astronaut here, he's here to help you. So yeah, been working on some fun technology, a lot of educational content, a lot of transformational content for businesses, and yeah, still active with the homegrown worship community as well. But yeah, not relentlessly sharing songs every week at the moment. But there's still time. There'll be a window.
Another sort of 52-week stint coming up anytime soon.
I think when I retire from my business, I could go back to that. Yeah,
when you have more time, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's great. Finally, where can people go to find out a bit more about you if they're interested?
Yeah, so if people are interested to find out about what we do, resoundmedia.co.uk is the place to start. And from there, you can step inside the world of LearnX, which is really fun. If you want to connect with homegrown worship, you'll find that there. And then also Rocket Fuel, if there's any music artists looking to get support financially behind their next project or run memberships, we've got an amazing platform to help artists to get the funding they need to get to the next stage of the journey. So yeah, it all kind of starts at resoundmedia.co.uk, and you can find LearnX, homegrown worship, and Rocket Fuel there.
That's amazing. I've loved hearing about how you are shining your light for God in the way that you're doing that, and the way that you're helping others do it as well. I think that's a really key thing. But that's all we have time for today, friends. Andy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I hope Andy's story has really encouraged and inspired you to follow your path and to shine your light for God as far and as wide as you possibly can. I remember it was Jesus who said in Matthew 5, nobody hides a light under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand so it gives light to the whole room. So for now, it's goodbye from myself and Andy.
Goodbye.
God bless you, and see you soon on the next Illuminate podcast. You've been listening to the Illuminate Podcast. If you have a story to share about how you've been learning to shine your light for God, then I'd love to hear from you. Go to joelcause.com/podcast to find out more and get in touch.